Well, hello again, and welcome back to the Wives Club. We're so happy to have you back. My name is Margaret Brown. Just like you, I am a patron of Mr. Kevin Samuels. I simply booked a session with Kevin to ask his permission to stand up a community of like-minded and marriage-minded women within the privacy of his Patreon group. And I am so grateful. Not only did he give us his permission, Kevin actually came up with the name The Wives Club. So what we do here is we use Kevin's shows each week to talk about our lessons learned, our action items, improving ourselves, and as our way to give back. So I am a former wife in the Atlanta area, and I'll let the other wives introduce themselves.
I am a future wife from the Boston area. Looking forward to today's chat.
Fantastic. And Lisa?
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm from the South Florida area. I am a current wife and I'm excited to be back as well.
This looks so beautiful. I'm jealous. And Hermisha.
Hi, everyone. I am Hermisha from California, but currently residing in North Carolina, and I am a pending former wife.
Fantastic. Okay, ladies, so much good content. One of the things that I want to talk about, Kevin did a show, and this was, kind of geared towards the men, and he was talking about the skills that make men desirable. And so many things struck me when he was talking about EQ and having, success is shared. He gave the example of his expense account and different lessons that he's had to learn to be the best version of himself. He's often said that men take feedback really well. They're willing to do the work. They're willing to invest in improving themselves. And, one of the things that I've learned, in a relationship with a high value man, the work never stops. And to me, that's a good thing. We should want to improve. But when we look at the type of women that high value men choose to partner with for life, how do we compare to that? I've always said here within the Wives Club, whether you're currently married, formerly married, or want to be married, marriage is a mindset. And, I've shared with you guys one of the things that I've had to do and invest in is, etiquette training. I know my natural personality. I'm very, I can be loud, I can be very excitable and have a lot of gestures. And I've had to really work on, toning that down. I've had to, study my guy to find out what he responds well to and, what he doesn't. I think when Kevin talks about self-awareness, separation, and balance, one of the things that I'm so appreciative of us here in the Wives Club, we're not perfect, but we bring the best version of ourselves and we continue to try and improve. So, as the resident elder, in the group, I'll share one of the things that I'm seeing now that I'm in my, later 40s and I have friends that are in their 50s. There's kind of this, oh, you know what moment when we've been so focused on success in the way that we define it, relationships kind of get put on the back burner, and then you're trying to play catch up. So my encouragement point for this week is, definitely looking at relationships as something that requires work, consistent work, and sometimes a lot of work, but the payoff is definitely there, not only for yourself and for your relationship. So that was my first point this week.
Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, no. So I think we're all along the same lines, right? I think a lot of times with these YouTube conversations and the Instagram conversations, we see that people are not thinking about the phases of life when we think about how that intersects with relationships. So like retirement planning, thinking about towards the end of life, what that looks like. Because a lot of that, especially for people that have children, I want to focus on a conversation where Kevin was talking to a woman who was, kind of like concerned about the double standard when it comes to having kids and men that have kids, right? So I think he kind of helped her compare the two. So if a woman has children, looking at her value versus a man that has children and what his value would look like, or what is their marketability in the dating marketplace, right? So if we are back out here and we're looking into other relationships, it's okay. But, I think Kevin did a really good job at talking about what that double standard looks like, because, I think he uses the statistic of a lot of Black men are single and childless. And it's a very small population I think it's around 26% of men that have more than one child and you know, are kind of reproducing, so to speak, from that number that he shares. Because I think the woman was just like, well, that's not really fair. Why is my value lower? And, you know, his is not. So I think it's just kind of looking at the reality of it too. You know, it's one of those things with life that's kind of unfair as women, but we also have like, you know, a very short amount of time to reproduce in general. And that's just, you know, biologically. So it's something to think about. Yes, it can not be fair to some, but it's just one of those parts where we just have to look at it, deal with it, take the situation and make the best out of it. So that's my first point for the week.
Yeah, that's really powerful. You know, and I love when Kevin talks about we are equally important, but we are not equal. That's one thing that I've learned with the double standard. And there are things that, you know, benefit women that men have to kind of take the short end of the stick. There's things that benefit men that, you know, women have to take the short end of the stick. Let's toss it over to Lisa. What did you have this week?
I always am intrigued when he talks about, are you a wife? Or he asks young ladies, are you a wife and stuff like that. And so I was kind of going to dive into that. Like, men are always watching us. As a teenager and a young adult, my dad would always tell me and my sisters, like, you're not going out looking like that. You're not going to wear that, or you don't need to buy that or stuff like that. And so my dad would watch over us and tell us what to do and you know, how we should go out in the world. And then in dating, like I remember when I started dating my husband or boyfriend at the time, my husband was in the Navy. So he had a lot of Navy friends. And I lived in a Navy town in Jacksonville, Florida, where I met my husband. So I didn't want to date Navy guys, but I ended up dating one. That's a whole other story. But anyway, so what I'm saying, men are always watching. So my husband had loads of friends in the Navy that were all over the place. And so when I met my husband, I didn't know any of his friends, but his friends knew of me because they knew my face, or they see me in places and they see me with him. And they would always report back to him like, oh, we saw your girl at the mall or something. And she wasn't hanging out with nobody. She was just doing her thing. So he would tell me later in life that he's like, my friends would report on you and tell me they saw you here, they saw you there, they saw you out with your sisters and how you were acting and how you were moving. Like, and he was, so I said that to say all this, like, when he tells women, are you moving like a wife out in the world? Men are watching, are you moving like a wife? And what they're watching for is like how you dress, how you, the things you do, like, are you tattooed? Are you got a lot of hair and nails and claws that are just exaggerated? And also when you tell them about your relationships, like another marker is like, how long were you in a relationship with such and such? Were you in a relationship with a dude for 3 years? Were you in a relationship with a thug for 5 years? You know, did you waste your time? Did you waste your youth? Because they're in, you know, it may not mean much to you, but when the guys think about it, like if I would tell my husband I was in a relationship with some dude for 5 years and he's like, what? He would think that was crazy. I mean, I never was in that situation, but when you think about telling someone that, think about what they're thinking about of you. And so I think a lot of times Kevin says that to women and they don't really understand the question or why would you say I'm not a wife? Because what you just told me about yourself, you're not moving like a wife, and how a guy would think of it. So what I love about listening to Kevin is, and I know I've heard this from my father and my husband in the past, but he kind of makes it in a way that I can understand it. Because sometimes with my female brain, I just need to hear it a different way or a couple of other ways to make it make sense. And so I understand the disconnect when the women and the young ladies come on the show and say, what do you mean? I don't understand that, because I do feel that way too, as a married woman, and having some, you know, to look over my life and say, how did these pertain to me? So I get it when they say I don't understand or doesn't make sense. But when you hear it a few times over, and maybe they have to go back and listen to the replay or play it a couple times, or get your dad or your brother or somebody, a guy, to come in and make it make sense to you. So that's a big word for me. Make it make sense. So I understand it. Break it down for me a couple times, a few ways, so I get it. So I just thought I'd mention that. So when you're wondering why aren't you a wife, or what makes you a wife, or what can you do to be one, start thinking about it in those terms. So I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that is very helpful, Lisa. And, our reputation does precede us. It's a decision that we have to make. I remember, when I was younger and I was kind of the same version of Maggie, I was teased, because I was just kind of like a late bloomer. Now in my older, years, this is what's important to men, and if you want to be with a man and not a woman, we might want to think about what's important to them. Anyway, Hermisha, what did you have this week?
Yes, I think I was just taking notes, Lisa. That's an excellent point. Because we're not really intentionally taught, but then also, the idea of choosing wisely too is sticking out to me. I'm thinking about the young woman who was on the Instagram, and he was asking her a question, and she had a 12-year-old son. And basically, how long would it take for a man to have sexual relations or sleep with you? And I think she said until marriage. And so, while as a believer, I definitely understand her sentiment, in terms of wanting to save yourself to that man, to that king, to that one, and that's we know that to be scripture. Also important is understanding the whole counsel of scripture too, because I got to go back to Esther. And let me take this moment to clarify. I don't want to juxtapose Kevin as a Mordecai. He's not Esther's father. He's more like a Haggai. And Haggai was the guy who was preparing the women to meet the king. And they went through a year of preparation, sort of what Kevin's trying to do. Are you prepared? Are you fit, feminine and friendly, right? And I want to highlight this because in terms of choosing wisely, you know, we're not here, you're not, if you're moving like a wife, you're not out here trying to sleep with everybody, period. You want to choose wisely. And so when it came to Esther's turn to meet with the king, and I want to use that because these women were meeting with him and they were sleeping with this king. And when it came to Esther and obviously she won the favor, you read the story. And then he put the crown upon her head, yada, yada. But she was a candidate for him. And so I guess what I'm trying to highlight is when we're talking about choosing wisely, and although you want to save yourself, notice she gave her way to the king and he married her. Okay, so you're not trying to give yourself to just anybody, basically. And so it kind of goes back to what Lisa's saying. If you're a wife and you have the attributes of a wife, that you will move a little bit different than anybody out here just sort of just trying to, as they call it, smash and dash. For myself, obviously I'm wrapping up a situation, but I know I'm a wife and I'm not about to be out here just, and and it's quite frankly scary. And I talked to Kevin about this. He was like, "You don't want to be out here." I was like, "I don't want to be out here." I was like, "But I'm out here." He's like, "Yeah, your situation is just untenable. It's unreasonable." And it's kind of like, I got to be out here because of the situation. It takes two to work things out, unfortunately. And so here we are. And so, but I know once I sign on the dotted line pretty soon that I'm going to be out here. But to choose wisely, this is what we want to be intentional with, ladies, and what Kevin is trying to encourage. When you choose who you want to be with in that way, that you're choosing, is this man a husband? Period. And that's my point I want to make on that.
That is so powerful, Hermisha. I mean, look, we love to keep it real here. And, I'll just be frank. You can have, I'm going to say it, you can have a lot of sex without having a lot of sexual partners. It's what I've never understood this, women are so, like you would say, Lisa, mannish now. Men are the ones that spread their seed. We don't. But this is something that I knew about myself early on, and I've shared with you guys. I met my ex-husband when I was 18, divorced when I was 36. So that's half of my life, one person. And then I've been in another relationship after the divorce since then. There was about a 6-month period post-divorce that I remember, like we all have our, coworkers and these women that are just like, "Oh, girl, you need to get out here. The world has changed. It's so much fun." And so I kind of, got on the apps and I was like, "Well, let me see what's out here." I was miserable. It's not for me. I know that I prefer to build a relationship with someone. So, I went out there and I hated it. I know that I'm a relationship girl and I decided to put time into a relationship that now 10 years later, I'm incredibly happy. This reminds me of the show that Kevin had with the young lady who's the business owner in Florida. And I think it was titled, Why Aren't You Married? She's beautiful, she's successful. And like a lot of modern women, she kind of said, I just never really prioritized it. Let me wave the flag, use your youth and beauty while you have it. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can work on your business. You can be in a successful relationship. It just comes down to the communication and making sure that it's in alignment with the vision that your man has. You don't have to choose one or the other. Kevin talks about this all the time when women in other communities, figure out a way to get it done. But we in our community kind of have this boss babe, vision that, we want to go out here and conquer the world. And then when we're tired and we're ready and we're giving our leftovers to somebody, that's unfair. And as a boy mom, I've shared with you all, I'm going to coach my boys. I mean, they're going to choose for themselves, but I'm going to coach them because, like you talked about, Lisa, with the double standard, I know once they turn 18, it's going to be head down for 10 plus years, eating what, so that they have, what did Kevin say in his last show? Are you a man who has the leverage? Can you negotiate? So, anyway, all that to say, I'm seeing it now. I had a conversation with a friend who is, 55, so she's 10 years my senior, divorced, and, as one of these older women that's very picky. And unfortunately, we don't have as much to bargain with when we're tired and we're older. She was in I guess friendship kind of relationship. This is the thing that I don't like. She's one of these people, love her to death, but I've seen this pattern happen a couple times where she'll be in a relationship with someone and she'll say, "Oh, we don't want to label it," or "We're just kind of going with the flow. We don't really want to call it anything." And then she thinks because he's giving her attention, or they're spending time together, or they may go out and do things, that it's actually building a relationship. She has feelings for this person, and then I've seen this twice already. The man will either it ends up he goes to her and then he gets somebody younger, more vibrant, somebody that he's more attracted to, and she ends up being very hurt because she thought it was something other than it was. So I'll close with this. Kevin has said, as older women, one of the things that we should be winning on is discernment and being able to communicate and leading with wisdom. So before life happens to us, let's open our mouth and be realistic about what our options are.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, that's actually an interesting case of microdosing. I think that's what they've been calling it these days, where, someone gives you a piece of satisfaction, but it's not 100%, right? And it's enough for you to come back, but it's not exactly what you need. And I think, just like how all of us have been saying this week, it's just a matter of how you vet and being strategic in that way, right? You'll often hear Kevin ask women questions like, okay, well, now that you know what type of income level the man that you want needs to be in, what profession does he have? And a lot of the times people don't understand that. And the other part of it is some of these higher paying professions require a lot of your man's time in the workforce, right? So the trade-off with that is you might be home alone for a little bit, So there's just these things that we have to think about as far as vetting, but and it depends on your situation. Like once you get clear on your situation, like for me, I know exactly what I'm looking for. So it's easier for me in the field because I know what jobs he might have. I know how to recognize them if I see it, you know what I mean? And it's not even just on looks, but it's just as far as lifestyle, like I can understand that a little bit. So that means in my case, it might be somebody that's older, somebody that is divorced, somebody that has a child, right? Because those are things that because of my situation would work. And those are candidates that would be a better fit. Right. And the other thing that I would mention too is sometimes we can sleep on our network. You'll often hear Kevin say, women, get rid of your single friends. I can tell you guys, I met with a single friend this week and I regret it because it was just like, I haven't seen her for a really long time, but it was just the energy overall. When I'm with my married girlfriends, there's much more camaraderie around relationships and family building. And I really enjoy my time being around those girlfriends versus the single ones. Like like I can't even tell you guys, like just being around her, like everything just went bad. Like, and the conversation was good, but like circumstances, it was almost like the universe was like, hey, you might want to go back to the other side for a while. Like things like parking tickets and tables not being available. It was just like all of these uncontrollable things. And I was just like, I think this is a sign. But going back to the network, a lot of my married girlfriends would, whenever, one of the husband's friends would be available, they're just like, hey, let me set you up with this guy. This might be somebody you might be interested in. There is real power in our personal networks as women. And I think we should leverage that a little bit more because when we have our friends that are really good catches, we always want to make sure that they're okay, right? So I think it's a good point, and it's something that is often underutilized.
That is so powerful. And I think we can all relate to that. And Kevin says that being a wife is a role. When you talk about knowing how to handle yourself when your man is doing other things, it's not all about you. That is so important. And that's about the wife mindset. But Lisa, I'm going to come to you. What else did you have this week?
What I get frustrated about when I see some of the shows sometimes is when he talks to the women and he asks them, well, what kind of man do you want to, what kind of man are you looking for? Most of them say, I want a high value man, but they never really talk about the Henrys. I am all about the Henrys. I am married to a Henry and I love it. I don't understand why people are like, why a middle-class guy or a average working guy or someone that is not, my husband is, he's blue collar and he works for a union and he was in the military and they never talk about him. And I'm just like, I'm just here to shout out to the blue collar and the Henrys out there because he said, he also said you're going to be married to your husband's lifestyle. You're not just going to marry your husband. You got to be married to their lifestyle. And whatever lifestyle they provide for you, you're going to support it. You're going to be the helpmate of it. But these women never talk about it. So I'm just like, I wish he would do a show about researching men's jobs. And I know he talks about white collar jobs a lot and those guys, but maybe start researching the blue collar guys and what they do. People in the military, people who are longshoremen. That's another, not really the military, but it's another kind of like a union job. Construction workers, because like Maggie was saying, her sons will have to do the first 10 years out of high school or whatever. They're gonna have to grind and go to school and make something of themselves before you women their same age are gonna even look at them like, ugh, you don't have no money. Well, of course he doesn't have any money. He's working, he's getting a trade, he's going to school. So I really just want to root for, these guys that make the world go around, that do stuff that make trains and planes and boats and make us the truckers and the people that get us stuff that we use every day so we can have all these conveniences and live the way we want to live. So I would just say, ladies, let's do some research and let's, if I shout out to Kevin, but let's have a show about what these careers are and what these guys bring to the table. Military guys have great benefits. You can getting a home, being able to buy a home with the VA benefit. That's a great thing instead of having to bring $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 to the table to buy a house. Guys that work for a union. My husband works for a union. They have a lot of benefits. Their jobs, they fight for them. Just different things to bring to the table. I just have a small universe of it, but I know there's even bigger and people can add to the conversation. But, salute to our blue collar guys, salute to our white collar guys. But when he asks you, what kind of guy do you want? It's just so frustrating. They always like, oh, I want a lawyer. I want a ball player. I want this, that, and the other. And you really don't know the roles and what people go out in the world to become and do, and what also it takes to get to these jobs and to maintain them and to do them. So that's my little tidbit. So we can just, when we come on the shows, we can be better prepared and bring more to the conversation. So I just thought I'd throw that into it. Thank you.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. I'm telling you, one of the things that strikes me, Kevin said it, I think, on one of his research shows, when he asked women the type of lifestyle that they want, they're really defining something that's more upper class. And let's face it, any of us who come from humble beginnings experience, right? If you've made yourself, or you're in a relationship with someone who's made themselves that, realize that it is the, what is it, top, 1%. The guy that I'm with, when we reconnected, he was a Henry. He's shot up, and I've been there, throughout the shooting up. But I think it's completely unreasonable and unfair when women just sit back, let someone do all the work, and then say, yeah, I want the best one on the shelf. But I could go on and on. Hermesia, what did you have?
No, it's a valid point, because he would challenge that. What are you bringing to the table, right? If you want that type of guy. And I'm just thinking a couple of things what Lisa is saying is very, very important, because we don't want to forget about our blue collar workers. My father, pretty much was blue collar, or he was a hard worker. And nothing against the white collar or the top 20, 10, 5, and 1 percenters. Everyone has value. But also, knowing, again, choosing wisely, and knowing, I love that, the lifestyle of these men in these professions, like getting really crystal clear. That's going to help weed out, the Pookies or whoever that are just kind of like, I think I love what he said, the beta orbiters, if you will, people just kind of orbiting, and then you're just kind of, you find yourself in these unintentional relationships, and then you end up with children along the way, so you want to be intentional, you want to be conscious and self-aware, and manage yourself, manage relationships. But the point that was sticking out to me was when he mentioned that women love men who cheat. And I was listening, I said, okay, he's going to dig a little deeper here, because there's a whole psychology behind that. As a clinician, I was thinking about, where was he going to go with this? Because on the surface, everybody's resounding sort of like, no, we don't like people who cheat. We want monogamy. We want, right? Which is part of human nature. But at the same time, there is a psychology behind women going for the guy that everybody wants, or the popular guy, or the bad boy, the soldier. We hear songs about this. So that's really the psychology behind what he was getting at. On the surface, again, on the conscious level, no one says they want a cheater, but really behaviorally, how do these men move that happen to have other women on the side, right? And that's different from exercising options, by the way, because one thing I do respect with Kevin when he says exercising options is different than cheating, because you are being honest with your partner about what's happening. You're not doing, there's not deception, right? And so when he says that women who love men who cheat, these men are not informing these women. They are doing their thing. Other women are trying to get with them or whatnot. But anyway, it's this idea that we sort of glorify the bad boy type of image, if you will. And so I thought that was very interesting, that a lot of women were calling it. No, I don't. He said, well, why are women writing songs about this? And I was thinking about that. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of songs. Mary J. Blige, songs are popping in my mind, and the whole Waiting to Exhale album came up. That although these women were hurt by these men, I wonder if they recognize the signs of these men, and how they were moving and things of that nature. What really attracted you to this type of man, right? And there's been some research on this. I forgot the quote who it was, but a lot of women who go for these types of men say that it makes them feel more feminine, believe it or not, which is really feels like a cognitive dissonance type of thing. It makes you feel more feminine, because these men are typically alpha men. However, they are moving in the way that can be very deceptive, but they're getting something out of it in return. But yet at the end of the day, there's heartbreak and heartache, right? Because they're not being honest. Again, different from exercising options, but yet a lot of women are still going for these types of men. So I thought it was a really interesting concept, and still processing that one.
Yeah, oh, there's so much in that, but you're right. That whole bad boy thing, we've been hearing about it. And, one of the things that strikes me when Kevin talks about the statistic about how many Black men are single, childless, and in the middle class, and there's a percentage, I don't know the number, so I don't want to misspeak, of men that will never, produce children. They're just going to basically die without reproducing. And it's heartbreaking to me. But when Kevin says, what is it like? there's an 18% or 20-ish% of men that are the ones, you know, reproducing all over the place. Ladies, that's really on us, you know. Yeah, it's really sad, but we have to do better because men respond to what we allow. And you know, we have to take ownership on that and do better and choose better, myself included, so that we have those better outcomes. But that was fantastic. We'll do one last round.
These are just getting so much better and better and better. It's like it's hard to end them because there's just so much good points. I'm just gonna stop here.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, this is amazing. It's helpful for me, it's helpful for us, and hopefully helpful for the community. Lisa, any final thoughts from you?
No, I've enjoyed this conversation. I wish we could continue it, and I hope we get some feedback from you guys out there in Patreon world. So hopefully, excuse me, hope to hear back from our family on Patreon.
Absolutely. And Hermisha, what about you? Any closing thoughts?
I'm just happy to be here I'm really excited about the content as well. And really choosing wisely, that's for all of us, right? I just choose wisely. In order to do that, self-awareness, in order to have self-awareness, get a therapist, book a session. Kevin's got a therapist. There's other therapists like myself out there, but get in and do the work, basically.
Yes, absolutely. There's so much more to live for, and we can all improve no matter where we are in life. Well, with that, we're going to end this version of the Wives Club show. Thank you so much for tuning in. In the description, there'll be a link. If you'd like to join the panel, the Wives Club is always open to any patron who is currently married, formerly married, or wants to be married. Even if you're a guy who wants to shoot your shot and maybe find a wife, we'd love to bring you into the conversation. Until then, we'll see you guys on the next one.